Vacation Rental Machine helps hosts just like you learn how to start, grow, and scale your short-term rental business. This show is all about creating systems that help you automate your business, giving you more time and money freedom. If you're ready to start living the vacation rental life, then subscribe to this podcast today. Come and join us on our Facebook group, The Host Nation, where we'll be talking about starting, automating, and scaling a short-term rental business. Now, on to the show. Hey, welcome back, Host Nation. In this episode of Vacation Rental Machine, we're going to be talking about raising capital for your first unit. So, John, what kind of walk me through the process of how do you go about trying to get that initial capital for your first unit?
Gotcha. If you don't have the capital already, it could be a little difficult to get the funds that are needed, but it's not a mass amount. I mean, we're not talking about flip my house type of money where I need 10% of the down payment, and we're talking about $50,000 to $60,000. We're really talking about somewhere between 7 to 10K. For some, that can fit on a credit card. If you can find a way to get the cash from the credit card, you might be able to self-finance your way through. But keep in mind that comes with interest. That comes with, an obligation to pay it back to a creditor. And you, technically, when you use a method like that, or even borrowing money from somebody, you become indebted to them until you can pay them off. So I think this business is good enough and the funds are low enough that you could save personally the money that you need to get your first unit. And after your first unit, if you wait a couple months, you'll have enough seed money to get another unit. So we're talking about 7 to 10K. And, if you have to come up with a small sacrifice to kind of save the funds, you might have to not go out and eat, and stash the $13 that you would spend eating and just put that somewhere where you could stash it. You might have to just change a little bit about daily life, just to add a little contribution to your future and your future financial freedom, that you could actually kind of just self-finance. I mean, it's really not that much money when you kind of think of it. I mean, if we're talking about saving $30 a week, you can get to that sum pretty quickly. And I think a lot of people that are going to be listening to this can do a little bit more than $30 a week.
I think for me personally, when I first started getting into Airbnb and short-term renting, I didn't even realize that there were other options out there. A lot of people think that when they have to Airbnb, they have to just purchase a property. Lots of people, they just think initially, I don't have the money for this. I'm going to have to put, 20% down for a home. This is going to, it's going to cost tens of thousands of dollars to furnish it, to purchase the home, to get it up. And I don't even know if it's going to work out. One of the other options that I highly recommend for people that are just getting into the space is if you don't have the money out there, then just co-host people's properties. And we talked about co-hosting in the other episode where we're talking about the different methods that you can get into the short-term rental space. Co-hosting, you don't need anybody. John actually just showed me a picture of the payout that he received for one of the co-hosting properties. I don't know if you just want to show that on the screen for the people that are watching on YouTube, John.
I would prefer not to, but it was a fairly large sum. We're talking somewhere around $17,800.
Yeah, so when you're co-hosting, you're not making that total amount. Usually you're making around like 20, anywhere between 10 to 20% of the amount that you are getting paid out for. But that's an easy way. Like John didn't have to put the tens of thousands of dollars into that property. He didn't have to purchase the property. He didn't have to furnish it. And just depends on how extensive you are going to be going into this co-hosting. But lots of people, you allow them to be able to provide it, and then you just manage it yourself. So if you are just like super eager to jump into the space and are looking to make some extra money, like I myself personally understand the struggle of not having like a super high paying job and trying to save that money. It took me a while to be able to save up to be able to remodel our basement and to be able to furnish it, but the payout was just incredible after that. Like to be able to cover my mortgage with my basement unit like that saves me an extra $2,000 a month. So one of the things that you do have to think about is opportunity cost. If you are purchasing something, or if you're just thinking about maybe like a vacation or going out to eat like in an expensive restaurant, you really have to think like, is me spending this extra $200 on this meal really worth it, when that $200 could go towards a unit, and that unit could easily pay for, one night, pay for your dinner. So you might be losing out with that opportunity cost for that time period. Like if you choose not to eat at that dinner or eat at that expensive place.
Yeah, Julian, you hit the nail on the head on that one. I mean, even when I go out or when I'm buying something fairly expensive, I'm thinking like, oh my God, this is one unit, I really could just put this money into one unit and make a little bit more money. So I always kind of calculate that stuff. That cautions me a little bit on big purchases. And I think it's important for people to start thinking in that realm almost for anything, even if this business is not the business for you and you want to start another business. But we got to think about the money that we spend daily, and actually try to put that money to work for us daily instead of us working for it, of course.
So some things that you can do when you are trying to raise capital is there's different ways that you can approach furnishing your unit. In the previous episode, we were talking about your brand and your niche, your brand identity. And what's really important with that is like if you can't afford like the luxury apartment, if you can't afford purchasing a property and you just need to be able to rent out like a room just to be able to start off, to be able to save that money, be able to earn a little bit of extra income, you can look for things like online. You don't have to purchase from like a Crate and Barrel or like a Pottery Barn. You can go on like the Facebook Marketplace. You could go on Craigslist, find people that are selling, like they're doing moving out sales. Just look up like moving out and find people that are selling stuff that they maybe purchased from IKEA or other places that are just getting rid of their stuff and they are selling it for a bargain price. You can purchase that very cheap and just start doing that. If you have like extra utensils, extra cooking ware, stuff like that, furnish the room with that. Furnish the place. There really is. This is a very flexible business where you can be able to put your own stuff in there, be able to make it homey, make it personal, and it doesn't have to break the bank. Sure, once you start scaling up, it might be easier to use Amazon, use maybe wholesalers, people that are going to be able to give you discounts on more properties. But when you're just starting off and you're really just trying to save that money, pinch those pennies, I totally understand where you're coming from. And you really just have to, again, you have to weigh the opportunity cost. You have to get creative, either with your financing, or you have to get creative with how you're going to be funding and how you're going to be investing into your unit. And then just think like there's different methods that you can get into this business. You can do co-hosting. You can rent out a room. You could rent out your own place. You could work with another person. You can have a business partner that maybe you split 50-50 on a place and then you're just profit sharing. There's lots of different ways that you can get into this, and you don't have to just feel like I have to purchase a property. I'm going to have to put 20% down. It's going to cost tens of thousands. When we're talking about like the rental arbitrage method, there is that initial startup capital. So maybe that isn't the best method for you initially. But if you do have the spare room, if you do have like a van that you can maybe rent out and decorate it, make it souped up, there's lots of different ways that you can get creative with this business.
Yes. If you by chance inherited a property from your parents, or somebody that has, an easy way to get into this business is definitely to co-host. And now you kind of weaned in some of the Burr method. If you can have a turnkey property where you could actually just furnish it and list it. You can try it out just for a few months if you want, just before you even list the property for sale. But you're able to kind of generate some income that way, and you actually build up equity the longer you hold on to the property. This is something of like, if my parents passed and they left me their house, I would probably try this method myself, just because I have the property. I don't have to sell it right away. It's going to be easy enough for me to kind of furnish it. I'm going to make some revenue, and it's always good to have something that even I could pass down. Even if I don't even move back there or do anything, if I can hold on to the property, it's just another place that, I'm kind of building my own legacy, and I want to leave that for my family.
one of the things that you just mentioned, like if you're inheriting something, you can even get creative like this. You could reach out anybody that is renting a property, reach out to them. You don't have to necessarily be like, hey, let me sublet your unit. You could even offer them that proposition like, hey, do you want a profit share? I'm getting into the space. I'm trying to start my Airbnb short-term rental business. Would you be open to letting me rent out your property, and we can split the profit? It doesn't have to be. Or like if you do have family, maybe your family knows that you're getting into this, and they have an extra unit or something. Maybe you can offer that service to them, be able to get that extra financing. There's so many different ways that you can go about this, and I don't want to drag this on for too long. If you have to get another job, get another job. If you have to be able to cut back on expenses, cut back on expenses. But there really, in this day and age and in this economy, there is no reason that you cannot make a little bit of extra money. We're in a really well profitable time where you can get creative. You can have different ways of being able to finance and be able to get to where your startup goals for capital are. So we're going to wrap up this episode with trying to get your startup capital, your funding for your first unit. And until next time, Host Nation, keep on hosting. Hope you hosts found value in this episode. If you did, please go on over to iTunes and leave us a review, as that would greatly support the show. If you'd like to connect with John, the community, and I, then go on over to our Facebook group, The Host Nation. Talk to you host in the next episode. Keep on hosting.